In 2018, Gill Packham was a 52-year-old school secretary at a school in Cape Town, South Africa. Her husband was a 57-year-old man by the name of Rob Packham, who was a chartered accountant and an ex-manager for a beverage company. He was also described as a kind and caring man who provided for his family and always showed calmness, while Gill was described as warm, loving, fun, and a friendly lady who was always easy to talk to. The couple lived in their home in Constantia and had been married for 30 years. At the time, the eldest daughter was a 27-year-old lady who lived in the United Kingdom, where she was a teacher and was engaged to be married, while the younger daughter was a 25-year-old who had just recently graduated from the prominent Stellenbosch University. On the 22nd of February 2018, Gill had left for work in her green BMW sedan, while her husband Rob had also left for work shortly after. After work that day, Rob would arrive to the station just after 5 p.m, telling the officers that he wanted to file a missing persons report for someone who had been missing for that day. While at the police station, the officers would tell Rob that the missing person case would be transferred to another police station within the Cape Town province. This missing person turned out to be his wife, Gill Packham, who had been last seen that day on her way to work. It would turn out that on that evening, Gill was reported missing after not arriving at her secretary job at the school. This was described as being out of character, as Gill was someone who wouldn't be absent from work without making it known first that she wouldn't be available. You see, few days before the missing person report was made, a Cape Town resident who left her office happened to be walking past a bushy area near a train station when she saw a green BMW parked within the area. At first, she didn't pay much attention to the car, but one thing that stood out was that the car didn't have plate numbers and had been hidden so well. Hence, her first thought was that the car must have been stolen. Little did she know that this vehicle would become something significant. Later that same evening, on the day this woman noticed the car, this same woman was woken up by her daughter, who had alerted the fire department of a car burning next to the Deep River Railway Station in the Cape Town area. It was the same green BMW, now engulfed in huge intense flames. Her daughter would peer through the cell window at around 9 p.m. that Thursday night, only to see that the area was soon swarmed with police officers and firemen who had to walk right through the night, trying to quench the fire. The next day, what these police officers had discovered painted a very gruesome picture. The charred body of a woman had been found in the boot of the green BMW. A burnt patch of grass and a scorched tree around the burning vehicle were all that was left around the surrounding area. The identity of the body could also not be identified as the body had been completely burned. Meanwhile, the forensics team would arrive at the scene some hours later, while the police department would await feedback in terms of the post-mortem reports. Detectives also started reviewing various possible evidence, including video footage that was obtained at the scene. Following the horrific discovery, investigation was already underway as various individuals were being questioned. Some people living around would later report sighting someone familiar driving around on that particular lane hours before the burnt vehicle was discovered. Some days following this gruesome discovery, the burnt body, which had been found in the boot of the green BMW, would be identified by post-mortem as that of Gill Packham. Gill's identity had also been confirmed by comparing DNA taken from her body with a sample taken from one of her daughters. According to the post-mortem results, Mrs. Gill had been burnt beyond recognition after being murdered. It was revealed she had suffered blunt force trauma, as seen by extensive bleed patterns around the several sites of impact. After this heartbreaking discovery by Gill's family, they were completely devastated, especially Gill's husband, Rob, who had been driving around to look for her after he couldn't reach her on the day she went missing. This was just before he filed the missing person report to the police station, where it was eventually transferred to another division in Cape Town. As the investigation continued to unfold, a state prosecutor advocate would make another notable discovery. According to 3 witnesses who were questioned during the case, a man had allegedly been seen driving Gill's car before it sped away from this witness. This car also had its plate numbers removed. The car was also later picked up by a traffic camera. This man, who was allegedly seen driving off from the area, turned out to be Rob Packham, Gill's husband. A week after the gruesome discovery of his wife's body, police would search the home of Rob Packham, where they found blood in his car, inside the bathroom the couple shared together, including their garage. He would be arrested a week later following this discovery and taken to the Deep River police station for questioning, where he denied all the charges levied against him. The court trial began several weeks later, and during the initial court proceedings, the state prosecutor advocate would mention how Packham was the last person seen with Gill at about 7:34 a.m. on the day of the murder, when he was supposed to be at work on that 22nd of February 2018. Rob Packham's cell phone was also said to have pinged at various cell phone towers in various locations while he was supposed to be at his place of work. However, Packham's defense advocates would tell the court that the reason for this and being seen driving around the scene was because he went around looking for his missing wife in places they both used to frequent. However, the court would reveal that Rob had lied and had actually never reported his wife missing in the first place. He had also never asked for any help to look for her because he knew all along where she was and where her car was. According to the court, he had been driving around in that car in the vicinity of his home. Also, his work phone was discovered to be in forwarding mode at several points in the day, making him unreachable. He would later give the police an incorrect PIN code for the same phone during the investigation. According to the indictment served on Rob Packham, the state would allege that he killed his wife of 30 years by hitting her over in the head in their garage. On the second count of defeating or obstructing the course of justice, the state would allege that Packham had disposed of the murder weapon, moved his wife's dead body from the crime scene to the boot of her car, and then proceeded to set the car alight. He had also tampered with the crime scene and supplied several false information to the police. Packham had been seen driving his wife's car in traffic on the day she was murdered, and during the trial, more eyewitnesses would also identify Rob Packham as the man seen driving around behind the wheels, while cell phone towers indicated that he drove around Constantia on the day of her disappearance, which contradicted Rob's earlier statement that he, Packham, had been driving in his own white Audi at that point in the day, searching for his wife. You see, why the cause of her wife's death was read out? Rob Packham didn't seem to show any remorse during the course of the trial. It would also be revealed during the trial that he had also tried to obstruct the administration of justice by calling a colleague to establish an alibi that he was at a meeting at work by 7:30 a.m., the same morning his wife Gill got missing. However, Packham claimed that the alibi was intended to help him surprise Gill with a new car for her upcoming birthday. He said he told one of his colleagues at work to tell Gill that he had been in since 7 a.m. because he didn't want Gill to find out about the surprise, telling the court that he had two cell phones, a work phone and a personal one. But this story is far from being over. Rob Packham would go as far as breaching his bail conditions during the trial, and this he did by continuing to harass his ex-mistress who dumped him after he was charged with murder. The subsequent trials, as it unfolded, would reveal that Gill had lost trust with Rob during their marriage. It would turn out that Rob was cheating on her with another woman. This led to some marital problems between both couples, as Gill had found out about their relationship in October 2017, but this was before one of Rob's daughters confronted him about his extramarital relationships and urged him to come clean, or she would reveal them. Why divorce became an option? In an effort to rekindle their relationship, they began going for marriage counseling. Rob Packham would later tell the court on how upset his wife Gill was when he admitted in one of these counseling sessions how he still had feelings for his mistress. According to him, Gill was upset about the entire thing when it was revealed by Rob to her that he wanted their marriage ended by Christmas of that 2022. This was Rob's statement as he butted heads with the prosecution, as the state sought to portray him as a dishonest man who was having an extramarital affair with his mistress. But this story goes deeper than that. You see, prior to Gill's death, it would be revealed she had sent WhatsApp messages to some of her trusted friends where she told them that her husband had refused to stop his, in quotes, nonsense. And what's this nonsense all about? According to Gill's friends, they revealed something disturbing about the alleged hidden nature of Rob Packham. You see, they submitted statements to the police where they alleged that Rob Packham had previously received therapy for sex addiction. But it wasn't just that type of sex addiction. Rob Packham was said to have an addiction involving handcuffs and whips. He was a man who was said to have craved for raw primal sex. If this was really true, then it would be safe to deduce that this might have been an addiction which Gill might not have shared with her husband Rob, which possibly could have caused a rift in their marriage, with Rob refusing to stop persuading her with his nonsense. This strong liking for handcuffs and whips was said to have placed their marriage under strain, and with several Facebook posts after Gill's death alleging that Gill was a battered woman who died at the hands of her husband. But these particular allegations are still yet to be proven. During the course of several trials, the court would be given a demonstration using a plastic skull to explain Gill's injuries. According to a biological anthropologist, Gill received 3 blows to her head, but the 2 injuries on the right side of the head, which were made with considerable force, were the cause of death, while a 3rd blow on the left side was likely the cause of a fall. A finger, shoe and tire expert also took the stand, where he told the court of some suspicious activity by Rob after the horrific incident. It was explained that during the investigation at Deep River train station, officers found tire treads and compared these to pictures taken of Packham's Audi on that February 2018, and it appeared similar. But when the officers went back a second time to photograph the Audi about 6 months later, which was by August 2018, they found the treads no longer matched. Rob had allegedly changed the vehicle tires. But even with all this surfacing evidence against him, while Rob agreed that he was the last to see her wife alive on that fateful day she was reported missing, however, he continued to deny every accusation levied against him while giving various reasons for some of the statements he gave. He questioned the accuracy of the photos because the number plates wasn't pictured, stating that it might have been a photo of his tires or they could have been anybody's. In fact, he insisted in all of his statements given throughout his trials that he never killed his wife. He pled not guilty, suggesting that his wife was possibly the victim of a car hijacking. On the 20th of May 2019, so over a year following his wife's death and following a 2-month trial, before verdict was handed over to Rob Packham. As the judge delivered her statement, she also didn't hold back in her assessment of him. She spoke, saying, and I quote, "He's no longer a younger man, and he's a father of 2 daughters and their only surviving parents. I'm aware of the effect of this sentencing, not only on the accused, but on the loved ones of both Rob and Gill. The seriousness of the offenses he has been convicted of is self-evident. The court is obliged to sentence the accused to a minimum of 15 years in jail unless there are substantial and compelling circumstances for a lesser sentence. He was 57 years when the crimes were committed, and therefore the court did not agree that he was a man of advanced years. He was a fit, strong, middle-aged individual, and neither of his daughters were minors." The judge would also describe Packham as a crafty, competent deceiver and an accomplished liar, living a selfish, destructive life, also having described him as having fabricated his version of events of that day in an attempt to cover his tracks. He was described as disloyal and deceitful, and displayed fatal violence to his wife of more than 30 years, even attempting to get a colleague to give a false alibi. He was also disdainful and disinterested with investigation. He has shown no remorse. His attitude is self-centered and deceitful, seemingly not concerned with how the mother must have traumatized his daughters. The police became justifiably suspicious and didn't believe his lies, the judge stated. You see, in South Africa, a convicted murder charge carries a minimum penalty of 15 years in prison, but the judge felt Rob Packham deserved a stronger sentence of 20 years.
I'm satisfied that the sentence of long-term direct imprisonment is called for, and that the term of punishment should exceed the minimum prescribed sentence of 15 years. I do not believe that a lifelong imprisonment sentence will be appropriate or proportionate in the circumstances of this matter, considering present applicable legal principles. I believe that a sentence of 20 years direct imprisonment on the murder charge will meet the objectives of sentencing that I have recorded, and that such a sentence will be manifestly fair and just in the circumstances of the case, without destroying the accused on the altar of general deterrence.
Then on the 12th of June 2019, so 16 months after his wife's brutal murder, Rob Packham was eventually found guilty and was handed over an additional 4 years for defeating the ends of justice during the investigation, two of which was to be served concurrently with the murder charge, leaving the 58-year-old with 22 years behind bars, where he was to spend significant time thinking about what he had done. However, based on parole guidelines, it's possible he might end up serving as little as 8 to 10 years, which is devastating to say the least, considering the brutality of Gill's murder. You see, what is more difficult to deal with in relation to this story is the fact that the violence against women in South Africa is out of control, and there appears to be no political or social will to decisively deal with this epidemic. Women in the country continue to ask when will the politicians, business and community leaders take a stand and action against the perpetrators of violence against women. There has been a long list of women who had died at the hands of the men they love, and Gill is only one example of a life extinguished in a particularly brutal manner. There are hundreds, if not thousands more women whose lives are impacted by domestic violence in South Africa every day. Action and not words are needed from leaders to curb the issue of its ever-growing domestic violence cases. However, it's more important that the perpetrators of such crimes are not only severely punished, but we should also see the victims as persons to be remembered and not just as a statistics. To anyone, whether man or woman in an abusive relationship, speak up and never die in silence. If possible, live and save your own life. It should be easier done than said. But even with all this evidence pointing towards Rob's guilt, his daughters, who described their father as a kind and caring man, would beg the judge that he shouldn't be put away forever, as they still loved him, even though it was evident he had killed their own mother. It could be said that Rob Packham found himself in a tight spot between two women and attempted to free himself by killing his wife, a rashless and evil plan which eventually took an innocent life. In fact, according to his mistress, during the trial, Rob would always tell her that he was unhappily married and that while he loved his life, he didn't love his wife. Before I end this story, I would like to state the words of Gillian's two sisters who were present throughout the trial and who stated that they were unaware of what she was really going through in her marriage. They would say, and I quote, "For the past 15 months, we've been dealing with the brutal murder of our sister Gillian Packham and the subsequent revelation of the tragic and painful circumstances she was subjected to in the years and months leading up to her murder by Rob Packham. While we became aware of some of these details in the last few months of our life, the conspiracy of silence surrounding Gill meant that we have only learned the full extent of what was taking place in the Packham family throughout this trial. Today's outcome by the judge allows us to acknowledge that justice has occurred for our sister. The fact that justice has been done does not take away the fact that girls lost their mother, and we lost a beautiful sister." As for Gillian Packham, may our thoughts continue to remain with her and the family even after all these years, and she solely remains the focus in this story.